Every time they tell me stop, I use every comment, hate that makes my feel. Gather up my energy and boom, I hear them talking, saying the way that I move is so reckless. That is a part of my mind I've been blessed with, giving my blood, so I am relentless.
This is a Keep Hammering Collective with Branlin Shockey.
Thanks for having me on.
You're not going to correct me?
No. You know what? I hardly even bother because my entire life people have been calling me
Brandon?
Not my name. Yeah.
Oh.
90% of the time it's Brandon. I've got Branlin. I even got Gremlin once.
Gremlin?
Gremlin. I thought my name was Gremlin.
Yeah, that'd actually make a lot of sense.
Yeah. Thanks, Mom and Dad, for that one.
Yeah.
Cheers.
So it is Branlin Shockey.
Yes, sir.
I was joking around. But the people who follow this podcast, follow this journey, they would know your name. Mostly, I mean, from the Shockey name.
Yeah.
Jim Shockey, you've been, in the business forever. But lately, from the film Once We Were Wolves.
Yeah. Yeah. Let me throw my sister's name in there too. Oh. Because nowadays she's a little bit big.
I didn't know you had a sister.
Oh, you didn't? Yeah. Yeah.
What's her
She's
name?
got double my dad's followers on Instagram. Mm-hmm. Just a fact for everybody out there. Yeah, she's pretty well known. So I'm like the least well known. And my mom too. She kind of outshines everybody in her family these days. But
yeah. Your entire family is just unique in its own way, but your mom is special. She's fighting right now and dealing with cancer. And from watching over, I think I've been following along with the Shockeys probably, God, I think your dad, 25 years ago, I was reading a column he would write. Wow. I think it was North American Hunter magazine. He had the back page column, and he was always a great writer. And then, so from that, and then we went into television, or you guys did, and you guys were dominating outdoor television for many years. And now we've kind of evolved, and outdoor television has switched gears a little bit, and now it's more social media or YouTube or whatever. It's just the climate has changed a little bit. What has this journey been like for you?
Yeah. It's just that everything's changing. Mm-hmm. It's changing faster now than it ever has. So when I started, when Dad was talking about, he's writing, very successful at that, as he kind of isn't with anything, but transitioned to TV. And I remember him talking about it. And he said, hey, there's the Outdoor Channel. We're going to try and make a TV show here. I'm going to call it Hunting Adventures. And I was like, kid in high school. And I said, Hunting Adventures, like, great name, Dad. As if that's ever going to work. And he did it. But at that time, that was, you could have a whole career doing that. You could be successful just in the outdoor space. People would know you. It was like a big deal to have a TV show. And nowadays, like you said, everything is changing so quickly. Even with the AI stuff nowadays, 1 week something's popular, the next week it's something else. Mm-hmm. It's a really turbulent time to be a human, but also especially creative. Yeah.
It's do you like it? What do you think? What do you prefer? Did you prefer the TV setting with the 21 minutes, or you guys had the professional, which I think was an hour long show, right?
Uncharted was an hour. Yeah.
Uncharted.
Yeah.
And then what's your preference? Like, if you could do whatever you wanted, what would you prefer?
I'd prefer there are no boundaries whatsoever. Mm-hmm. Yeah. So something like this recent film, Once We Were Wolves, that was a little bit like that. Mm-hmm. So nobody is saying, hey, it's got to be a certain length. No one's saying, hey, we got to make sure we tell this particular story and people are going to be offended if you tell it in this way. Because, those are all variations of, of reality, of what the truth is, right? Like humans, we love to kind of twist what the truth really is, right? Mm-hmm. Like what's reality in life? We always we're afraid of it, or we don't want to admit things. We don't like talking about death, for instance. Things that are looming over us. We don't like to dwell too much on sadness or people's problems. You say, how are you doing today? Everybody says, I'm great. They're lying half the time, right? So yeah, I think as a creative, as a storyteller, I'm looking for a way to tell whatever I feel in my heart, whatever the truth is, and
honesty. Yeah.
Yeah. Honesty. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Like something that's authentic.
Is that, and you felt you were able to do that with Once We Were Wolves?
Yeah, I do. And I'm very, again, thankful for you and Kip for allowing me to be on that trip. It's, yeah, again, we could tell whatever story we wanted. You didn't tell me that you wanted me to show anything or not show anything. Kip was the same way. You gave me a lot of time, to kind of figure my way out as, around into sort of what the story is and to edit it and to get it, where we want it to be. But yeah, it was a pretty special experience just from my side. Cause often, even though that's now been released, I just checked it. I think it's like 560,000 views or something in 8 days, which is amazing. When you're putting it together, it's just me and another guy on a computer.
Yeah.
And that's it,
Where did that concept come from, Once We Were Wolves? I mean, because that title was a surprise to me.
Okay. Yeah.
And so tell me where it came from and what it means to you.
Okay. I worked at a corporation years and years ago for a summer, I was in university, and I don't know, I don't want to speak for everybody, just my experience. Okay. My experience is that, people today, and I'm going to say, men mostly, but it's everybody just because, my experience is obviously from working mostly with men, but, we get up in the morning, we brush our teeth, we, have our coffee, we make Fruit Loops for the kids, take a train or a bus or a car to work. And then we sit in an office for 9 hours. Mm-hmm. And we're under fluorescent lights, and it's necessary, right? I understand that that's necessary, but it's not why we live, in my opinion. And I think that, when I was working in this office space, I would sit there and I'd be looking at my Excel spreadsheets and I'd look out the window and you see the mountains and the trees and the.
What city was this?
This is in LA, actually.
Oh, LA.
Just
okay.
I was in Orange County, somewhere in there.
Okay.
Yeah, so I didn't see many mountains, but I'm sort of speaking figuratively. And I've always thought that there's just like there's got to be something in us that says there's more to living than this. And then so I started thinking, okay, like, why do I feel that way? And if you look back to way back forever ago, our dogs now, like I have a little 2 pound I don't know what is this, like a Shih Tzu or something at home. It was once a wolf, right? It once had to kill things to survive,
right?
Life or death struggle every day. And I think that over time, we don't even think about it. And we just look at it. We just see a dog, but that was once a wolf. And I think, humans, there's some similarities there, and it comes out, sometimes in feelings that we don't even quite, realize, what they are.
Right. Yeah. We hadn't even talked about that really that I remember, but I defined it the other day because people were like, wait, what do you mean? We weren't wolves.
Right.
And I'm like, oh God. So, sometimes connecting the dots is difficult for, everybody has a different mindset. They're interpreting things differently. And so I just explained it kind of like what you did with, yes, once dogs were wolves, and man, even though we might be like your Shih Tzu or whatever it is, your dog back home, we're that version as a man compared to what we used to be. And so, yeah, I get the symbolism. I get that analogy, but I was just curious how you came up with it, and it makes perfect sense to me. And I think most people weren't confused by it, but I was just curious how we got to that title.
Yeah, I was just, okay, I actually know. There's a movie that I've always loved. I love the name of, and it's actually called Once We Were Warriors. And that was made, I think it's in New Zealand. I remember hearing about that, and I thought, wow, that's a freaking awesome name. I love that. Yeah. And then making this, I was trying to think about like what the actual theme of this was. Like, why, what's so special about this? What's special about, someone like Roy, right? To me, a guy like Roy harkens back to, even though I've never met him, harkens back to, the old days when we were wolves.
Right.
We weren't afraid, when we... And so, yeah, that's where the title came out.
Did you have the idea or the storyline in your head before we went on the hunt?
No.
That all came, so we experienced the hunt, the highs, the lows, everything. We got home, and then this concept came in mind. Is that how it worked? Yeah.
So I don't know about you. I want to clarify that you and I are both lucky enough to have gone on lots of adventures in our lifetime, you more so than me, but because of who my dad was, I was always, he was taking me all over the world with him. So I'm not trying to imply that this was like, you know, some crazy, ridiculous, unique experience. You know, because I don't think that would be faithful to, you know, again, guys like, you know, my dad who have, you know, do that stuff all the time, or like our guy Johnny, who
Writing.
Yeah, I mean, basically lives up there for part of the year, right? Like, in my mind, those are the real, you know, legit tough guys, right?
I agree.
Yeah. But it kind of came to me after, when I was on the plane ride home and I was thinking about what happened. And I thought, you know, I was thinking about the blizzard and us being trapped up there. And I think I wrote a social media post about, you know, the idea that we get so comfortable these days, you know, living in our houses with our air conditioning and like, oh, we're too cold if it's 70 and we're too warm if it's 73. So it's got to be somewhere, and they can't decide if it's 71 or 72. And then you're up there and you're sitting and a blizzard socks you in for 3 days. There's nothing you can do. You go outside, you die. You know, your tent rips, you know, you're in a lot of trouble. Like, that was a unique feeling for me anyway. And so that, you know, started me down the road of trying to follow, like, you know, how could I tell a hour-long, you know, story that was true to that sort of feeling that I had at the time. So.
Yeah. Well, you did a great job with it. And, you know, it had been done for, I don't know how long the film had been done before we released it. I mean, at least a year, right?
I think like 18 months. Yeah. Yeah. Cause I was pretty disappointed. Yeah, actually, you should tell me. I was definitely, when I put that together, I was like, okay, this is going to rock. And then, you know, he showed you and I think in the beginning you were kind of into it. And then, you know, we just kind of sat for a while.
Yeah. I mean, the reservation I had, and, you know, I shared it with a few people, and it was what tainted the hunt. I don't want to say tainted the whole adventure, because the adventure was special in its own way. But what tainted the hunt for me was I bow hunt, and that's all I do. And the fact that I couldn't get that grizzly killed with just my bow, it just felt, I don't know, it just didn't feel good to me. And it's like, bow hunting means so much to me, and I want to protect the integrity of what it means to be a bow hunter. And having a rifle come into play kind of soiled that in my mind. And so I didn't want people to watch it and think that, oh, so this guy, he bow hunts his whole life and he still can't, you know, he can't even get, so why are people even bow hunting? Why would you bow hunt a grizzly if you can't get it done? And that's not the case, because I have killed a lot of, not grizzly, but brown bear, which are bigger than grizzly, and a lot of other big animals. So it wasn't the fact that bow hunting, quote, failed. It was I failed in my shooting. And you know, I didn't make the shot that I needed to make to kill that bear quickly and ethically. And so part of me was like almost selfish, maybe. You know, I could say I want to protect bow hunting, but also it was like maybe I was protecting my own ego. I don't know. But after time, and I felt like, I just felt like more, I felt good, not good, but I felt okay with sharing it, because I don't know why. I actually don't know why. I don't know why.
I think, I mean, I can make a stab. First of all, I think that, you know, knowing you now as I do from working on the podcast, I think it'd be accurate to say that a lot of what you do in your life, if you feel like something's going to have a negative effect on what you're passionate about, and let's say bow hunting is a big part of your life, I think that weighs heavily in your decisions. And I honestly, and you know, I look through the YouTube comments, right? 1,000 of them so far. There's a few ones in there that say, hey, you know, Cam, you know, is whatever. He's a pussy because he, you know, some guy shot the bear charging at him. And, but I don't think that that's what you cared about. You know, knowing you don't care about that kind of stuff. You don't care what other people think. I think it's, you know, you didn't want to have a negative impact on bow hunting. You didn't want an action you took and a decision you made to, you know, make fewer bow hunters in the world. Mm-hmm. I really think that.
I didn't want anybody to be able to use that as an example of why bow hunting shouldn't be allowed, essentially, or why it's a less than option with regard to hunting. Because and I said this, I don't know where I said it, at the comment or a post, but I do think that bow hunting is still the most merciful way to kill an animal, because many times an animal doesn't know it's been hit with an arrow. There's a shock factor with their gun. There's a loud report. There's, devastation because they're killing by shock. So it's breaking bone and ripping apart muscle, and there's no mistake what happened. Whereas with bow hunting, I've killed a lot of animals that never knew that arrow zipped through their chest. Yeah. And they're out there. They're very physical animals, especially grizzlies or big bulls. And they get jabbed and hit and cut all the time, but they don't get shot all the time. So there's a big difference between an arrow going through them and a bullet going through them. And let's not pretend that every rifle kill is clean either.
Sure.
With long range shooting in rifles, I think there's plenty of opportunity for people to take a 700-yard shot, not know exactly where the animal was when they shot, not be able to, or the animal doesn't react because it's so far, or maybe they can't see the reaction, so they don't think they hit it. So maybe they don't go follow up, or if they do follow up, maybe they don't go to the exact spot the animal was. So it's not, hunting, and I'm not trying to pick on anything, bow hunting or rifle hunting. I'm just saying hunting is an imperfect endeavor because there's a human involved, and humans aren't perfect.
Right.
And we're trying to kill something, and death isn't always clean. So nothing's going to be perfect, but in my mind, a merciful bow kill is the best death to offer an animal, and I still believe that, despite my failure on the grizzly. But that's my thought of it. So that's like always going in my head, and it's hard to. I got a lot of these bulls here where I can show the video, and I hit the bull perfect and it ran 50 yards and piled up. So I have evidence there that, see, this is what I'm talking about.
Yeah.
And I didn't have it on that one. And that would weigh on me for sure.
Funny, you mentioned humans are imperfect, right? And, again, coming from the creative side, looking for stories to tell, the best stories, the stories that matter are the stories where people are imperfect, right? Because that's, again, coming back to, that's real. People we are not, other than in Hollywood, right? Arnold, we're not perfect.
Right.
And even in Hollywood, all those guys have, they've got flaws. Like,
yeah.
Right. So, again, going back to the movie, that's something that struck me too, the opening scene of that when you're in Alaska. And you can tell, by the way, and this is actually me genuinely surprised at the time. I remember thinking, oh, wow, like this is like no joke, you're holding your hands, I think, like this, and looking out the window, and you're kind of very subdued, very quiet. You've been kind of sort of jolly the whole trip, right? Because you're on a hunt, and then your demeanor totally changed. And when you went and visited Roy's house, that was you being very vulnerable, right? And I mean, you're a vulnerable person is not the way I would describe you generally, right? I'd say you're stoic, right? So. I think that, again, talking about the movie, that's the stories that matter, the stories that are most impactful are those that can have an emotional connection between people. And you do that by showing people being vulnerable and saying, I'm just like you. Mm-hmm. I'm just another human. We're all imperfect. Let's move on. Share stories, move on, but let's not pretend we're something we're not.
Right. Yeah. And I think, I don't know. It's like we've both been involved in hunting television for quite a while. Yeah. You much more than me. I mean, I hated cameras. I did it because I wanted to hunt more, and these people would sponsor or pay me to go on hunts. And I was like, I thought this is the greatest life ever. But I didn't like it. And I think, we don't need to cite examples, but a lot of people, when you talk about perfection, they would have taken that hunt, and that whole rifle part would have been on the cutting room floor.
Right.
The shot would have been the bow shot, and then bear run off, and then they go up and recover the bear. It's like no rifle mention, no nothing, just like, oh, yeah, I made a perfect shot, and the bear died quickly. And that's hunting television.
Yeah, that is. Yeah.
For a lot of programs, because it's selling something. It's like, we don't want to show failures, as you mentioned. Nobody likes to. But being authentic, I think, is a big part of hunting. I mean, if you want people to understand hunting, you have to be real, because hunting is so real. We're out there trying to kill an animal. It's not going to be perfect. There's going to be failures. There's going to be challenges that you didn't foresee that you maybe weren't up to the task. But when you wipe all that out and say, no, every time I go out, I make this perfect shot. This animal dies. Everything's good. No harm, no foul. It's not real.
Yeah.
And I remember I was working for Eastman's, and all I wanted my hunts to be back then, and I think they still use the tagline, but I just said, this is as real as it gets. And that's what we're always trying to do. For me, I don't know, what's your goal on that? Trying to keep it real always?
Yeah. Oh yeah. And and Dad was always like that too.
Was he?
Right. Yeah. He was always very much like, the shot, we're getting very specific down the road here of outdoor TV, but the shots where the camera would be in front of like the hunters and they'd be sneaking up on the animal and the camera guys right in the open. Dad was like, no, we're not doing that, and you get what you get. Mm-hmm. Right. So I learned, working with him that the best approach was to just be rolling the whole time, mm-hmm. which you guys found out in Alaska when I was rolling, when you would wake up your eyes in the morning, open up your eyes in the morning.
Yeah.
Cause you never, that's the real stuff. Mm-hmm. Right. The time spent around the campfires and joking while you're making coffee in the morning. That's endearing. That's part of the adventure. It's not really, I actually think you're doing a little bit of a disservice if you only show people, an animal being shot. I don't think that's an accurate representation of what you're doing, and more importantly, why you're doing it.
That's true. And we were kind of handcuffed with outdoor television with 21 minutes, and you had 21 minutes to mm-hmm. tell the whole thing. Plus in that time, you had to also make sure your sponsors were, you had the glassing shot where you could see the loophole or whoever it is. And so that's that's sort of the hunt. Yeah. It's not really the hunt. That's like, we do what we got to do because, hey, this airtime is expensive, right?
Yeah, yeah, of course.
And that's why I love the YouTube format nowadays and having that freedom. And you must really love it, but it's like, I think that's how I always had a big problem with. I can't really say hunting magazines, but it's sort of the same, and hunting television, because we're only preaching to the choir. People who buy a hunting magazine are hunters. People who watch the Outdoor Channel, they're already hunting. You're not opening the door into like new people. You know what I mean? You're not exposing somebody to our way of life. Whereas now we can, we can with YouTube, because it's not, all sorts of people come across that video.
Anyone with a link.
And so to me, it's a pretty exciting time to be able to expose people to what we do and why it's important without the restrictions of sponsors and different things like that. And I feel like that's where, to me, knowing you now, you've been kind of biding your time until now, because you're creative. You were handcuffed a little bit. I mean, you guys push the envelope on a lot on the professionals and on Uncharted as much as you could. But now I feel like it's even to another level, and you can really be as creative as you want, still tell the story you want to tell in the way you want to tell it. That must feel good, huh? Yeah,
it does. Well, and again, that comes because ultimately you say, hey, film what you film on the trip. And even though it took you a little bit, you're okay with showing it. Mm-hmm. You're okay with me showing you, making a mistake or failing.
Yeah.
Right. And not everybody is like that. So again, without that, I don't think you've got a shell of what the story really is. So, it's not authentic anymore.
Yeah. It's, how was that? I mean, you have filmed me. I don't know how many times you filmed me, but who's worse to film, me or your dad?
Ooh, good one. Ooh, that's a tough one. You guys are actually a lot alike. You're extremely driven, and you expect the best from everybody around you. And that, that includes, everybody, from the guides to the camera guys, everyone. And as I think you should, and both of you operate in oftentimes, dangerous situations, like, quote unquote life or death situations. So I would say who's harder, who's more difficult? That's a tough one. It might be a tie. Yeah. Dad was, Dad and I had that dynamic because, I'm his son.
Yeah.
Right. And not only am I his son, but also, if you look at my sister's, history, she went into hunting, right? She was in front of the camera on hunting adventures. She was traveling the world with Dad, and then did her own thing in the hunting space, was very successful. And I never did. Right. I had a conversation with Dad when I was probably 15 or so. And I remember this to this day because I've never seen my dad shed a tear before. Right. He's kind of like you, very stoic. And we started talking, and he was all excited because he wanted to bring me out to the whitetail stand he had all set up right in Saskatchewan. So,
yeah.
And I was like, Dad, I don't think it's for me. I don't think that purely hunting like that. Like I totally get it. I love what it does, but it's not like I like hunting, but it's not my passion, right? I've got a camera. I want to tell stories. I'm getting to that. This is exciting. And it was hard for him to understand that. Like he did, but I could tell at that moment that hurt him because he wants me by the stand, in the stand with him, and sitting there while the deer are coming in and put his arm around me like father son type thing.
Yeah.
And I'm saying like, my destiny is not in that world, I don't think, or at least not in front of the camera in that world. And so that'll always make it a little bit harder for me, a little bit, deeper for me, as much as I think you're horrible too, out to be out there.
It adds to the degree of difficult challenge, I guess, with your dad, or I don't know, maybe not challenge. I mean, I think he has to respect your talents though, because I see him talk about them all the time, and I don't think it's just whatever.
No. Yeah, I'm actually, I'm joking a little bit. Dad and I had, and still do. I still want to. I've been meaning to. I want to call Dad up and, do something, do some adventure somewhere because we haven't for years, right? And he's gone off. He has his museum there in Canada now.
Yeah.
But I think that I'd love to do a film with him. Now that both of us have kind of done different things and gone different ways for a while and come back and full circle and do something like Uncharted was again. And he's just such a, as much as I'm joking about it, but both you and him are, the Once Were Wolves things, right? You guys are in my mind, sort of represent the wolves.
Yeah. He's just iconic. Everybody knows Jim Shockey, but now, and it's weird how time passes and people get older and things change.
Yeah.
And there's sometimes I even think that there's bow hunters right now who might not even know who Fred Bear is. You know what I mean?
Right. Yeah.
So now there could be people who've watched what we do who know you from this, but don't really know your dad.
Yeah. That's crazy.
Isn't that? Time never stops.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
And because he hasn't been on TV as much, and it hasn't been the thing. So it's just to me, I think something like that, if for no other reason, it just keeps that. I mean, he's still here.
He's still here.
He's still here. It's don't forget Jim Shockey. He was the original, badass hunter. I mean, the bandana, the pants tucked in the socks on the arms.
Socks on his arms, yeah.
I mean, he was the no guff, as real as it gets, original.
Yeah.
And paved the way in hunting television for what a lot of guys do now. And your creativity of telling those stories played a big part of that. And so archery to me and hunting in general is about tradition and heritage and paying homage to those before us. And that's why, a film with your dad, if you guys, I don't know, it would be, maybe he's not as good as he once was back in the day, but it'd still be a pretty amazing story. I bet he can still get after it. He's a tough guy.
Yeah, and I would never, Dad is one guy I've learned many times in life. Anytime I think, I don't think he can do that, right?
Yeah.
I don't think he can start this museum in the middle of a small town I grew up in and it's be some huge success. Don't
underestimate him.
No, he's kind of like you. He sets his sights on something and that's it. It doesn't matter what other people say. It doesn't matter if it's supposed to be impossible. He just does it. And so, actually, I'm going to call him after this, and we're going to set something up. And I guarantee you, he would do it. He'd be great.
Yeah. Is it Hand of Man Museum?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And that's, I mean, I think he also, another part, when I think of Jim Shockey, of course, the adventures, but also the, the places where he'd go and the places he'd hunt is the people that he interacted with. That was always a big part of your show.
Huge.
Is, learning different cultures and sharing those cultures. And so that's what the museum is doing, a big part of it, right?
Yeah.
Because it's the history of the animals, but also of the culture.
Yeah. Well, it's remember, and Kip said this in the Once Were Wolves movie, he said that hunters, used to be explorers. Explorers were hunters, right? Like that's a big part of why you would go over the next mountain pass, or you try and, follow the caribou, whatever you're doing, because you're looking to, survive for sustenance, and you had to explore, right? And then that evolved into, obviously you're not climbing up Mount Everest to eat dinner that night, right? That's a little different. But then that got tied into what hunting is now, because we don't necessarily go hunt only because, we can go buy our food from the grocery store, right? So why do we go and do things? Why do we go hunt? Why do we travel to Alaska and go hunt, whatever moose? And I remember asking Dad that, and, because I went through my high school phase, and I was kind of like, wondering about it, the world and like why people do things. And he said, I remember this, he said there's a guy named George Mallory, right? George Mallory. I don't know if you're familiar.
Yeah.
Okay. So he was, one of the most famous climbers, and he was trying to climb Everest way back before they ever did. And a reporter went up to him, I think it was in London or something, right? And he said, why would you want to climb Everest? And Mallory said, because it's there, right? And like, and I thought about that. I'm like, that's all you really need.
Yeah.
Right? It's there.
Yeah. It's, to me, hunting is the ultimate test, because we don't have to do it. But if you do delve into it, you're going to have to be at your best to get it done out there. And some of those wild hunts, there's all sorts of different types of hunts, but the hunts that we love in the mountains, it's a big test. You're tested in every way possible, physical, mental, emotionally. And that's what I love about it. Because these animals, they're not cutting you any slack. They don't care how hard you worked. They don't, it's just they're built to survive. If we do it right, we're built to kill, because that's what man has done. That's how we've survived. We have to kill. That's life begets death. It's just how it works. So when we're at our best, they're at their best, we're at our best. That's a chess match. Yeah. And that's the test.
Right.
And then the reward for that test is, you got some meat. You got some meat for your family. But that's just a part of it. There's 100 different parts to it.
Right.
But the biggest part is you're testing yourselves.
Right.
I was thinking, I wonder, even though I had reservations about sharing it, I think that part of me, not making a perfect shot, do you think that made the film better?
Oh yeah. Yeah.
It added a different storyline.
Yeah. I mean, and obviously I would never wish, for a bad shot, right? Mm-hmm. It's not like I'm holding the camera thinking like, oh, I really hope Cam makes a horrible shot here. But the fact that, and also there's an element, I think people think, oh, like films or hunting films in particular, they're only good if they're, something dangerous happens, right? Mm-hmm. And I don't believe that's true. I think that's a very minor part of it. And, you can quickly look online and see people in the world doing way more dangerous stuff than what we were doing, right?
Yeah.
Look at all the, Ukraine videos right now.
Oh, right.
So, but yeah, I think that it showed you, like Cam Hanes, you're not supposed to, or at least people in their minds, their perception is you don't fail at things, right? Mm-hmm. You wake up in the morning, you run 26 miles, whatever it is, you do it every day, you don't complain. And they saw you make a mistake, even with everything else, even with being as perfect as you could be on the training side, you made a mistake. And that again shows you as being vulnerable. And I keep hitting on that, but that's what it is. It's and the truth and vulnerability are kind of hand in hand. That's just real life.
Yeah.
And I think that plays into the film. It's better. I would have, if you would, and you would never say this, but if you would have said, cut that out, make it look like I just made a perfect shot, I would have done it, to be honest. Mm-hmm. I would have said fine, but I wouldn't have respected you the way I do now in the future.
Yeah, I get that. I just, for some people, it's it's just an hour to spend time watching a cool film.
Yeah.
To me, I've thought about, there was a lot in that hunt for me. But I thought about that moment specifically, and I had that bear was coming in, and I was at full draw the first time, and I know you were upset I didn't shoot this because it was perfect.
That was in perfect spot.
The light, everything was perfect, but the bear was slightly quartering to me, ever so slightly. And it's like, as a bow hunter, and I never, I think the best bow hunters, and I'm not saying I'm good, I'm just saying I've been out there a lot, and it's just like, it's angles of the animal. If you're going to kill with an arrow, everything has to be, you have to be as perfect as you can as far as when you're going to shoot. So I was at full draw, bear is at 50 some yards, slightly quartering. And I was thinking to myself, I don't want to take a quartering two shot. And I'm looking at the exact angle, and it's just like, then the bear turned a little bit, got even worse, then kind of straight on. So that's when I let up. But when you're thinking about everything in that small of detail, you have to be looking at everything, every factor, feeling the wind on your face, reading that bear's body language. And I was just staring, and you don't want to stare right in the eyes. I had my head down a little bit because those animals can feel that. They feel something if you're staring. And, a prey animal can feel a predator staring at them for whatever reason, the sixth sense. And so to me, I'm always like looking at their feet or their hooves or whatever I'm hunting. I'm never looking at their eyes, because when you lock eyes with something, it knows.
Wow.
So I'm just like watching that bear peeking under my brim, and I'm like, I got to wait. And then bear went and got more quartering two, or more broadside, less quartering two. And then I thought, this is it. And for whatever reason, I was a couple inches to the left. And, obviously bear was hurt because it let 5 guys get within whatever.
Yeah.
All of us were within probably 40 yards of it, or 30 yards. So, it was close. It was close to, maybe if we would have waited, 5 more minutes, maybe the bear would have been dead, but it wasn't. But it's just like, I've thought about that so many times, that shot, and what was I thinking, and what did I do? How did I screw that up? Because I thought I was being disciplined. I thought I was doing everything right. I wasn't even, I never get nervous now, no matter what the animal is. I'm just like, no, this is what I do. I just got to, this is what I do. And I still don't know what happened. And it's just like, that's like, it just eats me up.
Yeah. My dad was like that too. If he ever made a bad shot, it would haunt him. And it's not because of, I think there's a little bit there because he, like you, put his life and soul into being a hunter. That's what he did, right? That's what he does. That's literally who he is, right? Jim Shockey, the hunter, right? Mm-hmm. So part of it is he wants to be good. But this is identical to what he would go through if he ever made a bad shot. He was shooting a muzzleloader, so there's some variability there. He would never, ever, ever I never heard him once say, "Hey, that was somebody else's fault." Right? It's not the guide's fault. It's not the cameraman's fault. It's me. Mm-hmm. I decided to pull the trigger. I made a bad shot, but he would beat himself up over it. Just like for hours and days, just going through his mind, and he'd repeat it. He'd watch the footage a bunch of times. He'd talk to me about it. He'd talk to the guide about it. And it was hard for me to understand at the time, like, why was he beating himself up so bad over this? But now spending time with you, I understand that a little bit more, right? It's not just about, it's not an ego thing. Mm-hmm. There's more to it than that. It's almost like you're not being true to yourself. Like you're kind of like, this is supposed to be who you are. Mm-hmm. And you weren't perfect.
Yeah.
It's tough.
How I looked at it is, when I was just first getting sponsored, first getting opportunities, I always thought that they could hire anybody to go out there and fuck up.
Yeah.
Anybody can do that. Uh-huh. They hired me because I got it done. I got it done every single time. So that was the expectation. It's not to go out and like, just go have a good trip. And if you fail, it's fine. No, I need to succeed every single time. And it actually, you know, I was, I was working, I killed 4 bulls one time, and I was hosting this TV show, and they said that there's concerns that you make it look too easy. And I was just like, so I'm getting beat up now for being too prepared and too ready and being too good at it's just, I felt like, I thought that was the hardest thing for me to take. And I quit working for that place, because I can't be trying to be my best and then also judged for getting it done.
Right.
It's like,
right.
So, yeah.
See, but I love, there's part of this that I like, because again, I'm not, I haven't been doing this for 50 years or anything, but I've gray hairs on the side of my head. I'll tell you, I've been here long enough now in the hunting industry side to see an evolution, right? I remember we were doing the professional series, and if we didn't have a kill shot, and we would call them kill shots, we didn't have a kill shot in every episode, it's not an episode. That's it. So if you have 13 episodes in a season, you need 13 kill shots minimum. And, often 2 per episode, because our perception was that's what people want to see, right? Now we had a trip to Nepal, and it was, for me being, even though, again, like I said, I love hunting, I love being a part of it, I love being part of the venture, but Nepal, even though it wasn't the most successful hunt per se, it's not like we were, hammering animals every day.
Stacking them up, yeah.
Right. It was a hell of an adventure.
Mm-hmm.
And so,
I remember that. I mean, because you guys were in some little, I don't know if it's a town or a village, but weren't they having a ceremony and there wasn't there a dead body? Was that the place?
Yeah. So we're in Kathmandu, and they're literally burning them. I remember that. I can still smell it because it has a particular type of smell, and they're burning a body right in front of us.
Mm-hmm.
So that was in the city, but then outside, once we got into the hunt in the mountains, for the channel, right? They want 13 episodes, and we had to make 4 episodes out of the Nepal series, okay, out of our Nepal trip. And it was only 10 days long. And we got back to the edit suite, and episode 3, I started cutting it together, and episode 3 had no kill shots. And I remember sitting with Dad and saying, okay, we're going to release an episode. And this is, that was everything back then to me, right? I mean, I think, don't have the impression that, I was driving around in Bentleys or anything and like crazy.
What was everything? What do you mean?
Like the series, the success of the show was everything to me.
Yeah.
Right. So if it failed me, it's like I'm, finding another job. So we sat down and we said, okay, we're going to do episode 3, and there's not going to be a kill shot because we don't have enough. And we said, okay. And Dad said, yeah, let's try it. But that was like unheard of. Hunting shows don't do that.
Well, I don't even remember the kill shot. Or, I mean, on any of the shows.
Right.
But what I remember is that ceremony.
Right. And that's the thing.
To the point. That's to your point.
We don't give people, and particularly hunters, we don't give ourselves enough credit. Mm-hmm. There's more to us than just going out there and drinking beers and hammering animals. That's not who we are.
Right.
And that was our most successful, 4-part series we've ever done. And there was never a single complaint there wasn't a kill shot, just like what you said.
Right. I said, I don't remember. So yeah, I think that is the, and maybe that's just how it works. That's how at first, to keep people's attention, because we're competing with Hollywood movies where there's shootouts and naked women and freaking who knows what, money and cars, and it's like explosions. And now you're supposed to have somebody watch a hunt with no kill shot?
Yeah.
That's tough because of the attention span. That's why it's crazy to see. I mean, it's crazy, but it's also pretty cool to see. We had an hour-long film once we were wolves. And even in this day and age of like what they say, like on social media, if you don't have their attention in 2 or 3 seconds on your reel, then you lost it. So the attention span is 2 to 3 seconds. And we had an hour-long film, and this many people have watched it.
Right.
I mean,
I
don't know what it means, but I like it.
Well, I think it means that even though there's computer, I don't know what, there's AIs, computer banks, all kinds of people literally trying to figure out a way to keep us glued onto these screens, right?
Right.
And they're damn good at it. Like, I mean, I admit it. Sometimes I get lost in there, and honestly, I blink. I'm watching like a cat video, and like, what am I doing?
Yeah.
But I think it says something that a few dudes can go out into Alaska, and not really even be thinking about what we're filming, but just be true enough and like authentic enough, and then come back, and that catches people's attention and has an emotional impact way more than the 30-second cat videos can ever do. They as good as the Zuckerbergs and the whoever the computers running all that stuff, as good as they are, they don't fully understand, I think, who we are, right deep down somewhere, and maybe we don't fully understand, but like something resonates. And I think that that trip, it's not. I don't even think it's the hunting element that really resonated. I think it's like more like the brotherhood element, like there's something there that resonates with people. And truthfully, I don't always know that, right? Like when we released that, I didn't know that was going to resonate like it did. I'm very happy to hear that, but yeah, I'm very lucky to have the opportunity even to try to attempt to tell a story like that.
Yeah. I mean, honestly, I expected when we released it, I expected a lot of negativity.
Yeah, me too.
And yeah, I remember one that said, something like I was walking around trying to act like a badass the whole time or something like that. And I'm like, oh man, I don't know.
You didn't look like a badass with your eye covers on at night.
I don't remember trying to act like a badass. I don't know. It's weird when you read some of these things and you are watching it and I'm like, what am I missing? What are they seeing? Where am I acting like it didn't seem like I was trying to act like a badass, but I don't know. It's just weird.
I mean, you're crying in front of 500,000 people.
I don't get it. I don't get it. But point is, I expected a lot more of that because, and I don't, I try to be pretty authentic with what I do. Everybody kind of slants it to make themselves look good.
Sure.
Just like whatever.
Yeah.
I mean, try not to be too crazy with that. But I expected, because I failed, it was going to be like a open season on bashing me. You know what I mean? Because hunters, it's weird. Hunters can be, God, the most judgmental, it feels like. And I think it's because all hunters think they're the biggest badasses out there. I guess I'll include me because I was walking around acting like a badass apparently. But everybody thinks that they would make the perfect decision. They watched the film. They said, oh, you should have done this. It was stupid to do that. This and that. I expected a lot more of that. And it's like, there hasn't been that much. Mostly what it's been is that, and I can't remember how it was worded. How did we word that? Where we opened the door into, or they made a connection from hunter to non-hunter? Do you remember how we worded that? Or I wrote it. I think maybe Kip said it. But anyway, it showed people who hadn't grown up hunting our whole lives. It showed them there was more to hunting than maybe what they thought.
Sure.
And it was just like it was just that the open the window into I don't know.
Yeah.
Can't remember how we worded it, but it made a lot of sense. And it was just like it did something different than most hunting films do, I think, is the point to that. Right.
Which and today, again, in today's world where you're inundated with noise, right? Digital noise is everywhere. It's hard to get away from. I personally try not to take that lightly. So if I see someone say, hey, on a comment, I'm paraphrasing, hey, I watched that film and I just wanted to say that this weekend I'm taking my boys out into the wilderness, instead of doing whatever else we're going to do. Because I watched that and that was inspiring and way to go. Like that kicks ass. That to me, that's it. Like Kip talks about in the film, he said, what do you want to be known as? Right? I don't know what exactly you want to be known as. I think I'm going to take guesses, but you could say it better. But that's a special thing, like where I see an impact that you're having, right? And it's hard to see that sometimes. I think probably for everybody. For me, sitting in front of my laptop, at 10 o'clock at night, and like wondering what the hell am I doing, and moving the color wheels around, adjusting this shit. But you see that when people send messages like that. So that I mean, I don't know about you, but that's why I do it. Right? That gets me up in the morning thinking, okay, like I can leave the world a better place than when I came into it. That's it.
Yeah. You made an impact on people. So you said it was pretty frustrating not to release that. did you, I think you said you're surprised by the response, but you know, as a filmmaker, man, you're creating something and you want to share it.
Yeah.
Right?
Sure. Yeah.
So, I don't know. I mean, did you feel like that was your best work and it wasn't being shared, or you weren't able to impact people?
Yeah. Yeah.
Because you never told me that.
Yeah. Well, because I talked to Kip, and because I was, I wasn't pissed, but I was like, okay, Cam's not going to do this. But like, honestly, I was like, I put a shit ton of work into this, and he just doesn't want to release it. And I don't quite understand why. I mean, but I get it. And so I talked to Kip about it, and he's like, he walked me through it. He said, yeah, I think you should release it too. Again, this is similar with Dad too. Growing up, I didn't think it'd be very fruitful if I said, hey, Cam, I think you're messing up here, because I put a bunch of work into this. Like, you owe it to me to release this film.
Yeah.
I don't think so. I don't think that's the right way to approach it. It's not really what it's about. It's not my reputation on the line, right? It's not my career on the line. I can move on from this. If no one ever sees it again, it'll be something I can show my grandkids one day, and say, hey, this is the unreleased, special film or whatever. But no, I even though I didn't understand the reasoning necessarily, I understood that, and I saw that this was important to you, that the perception of bow hunting is it for you, right? Like, why are you here on the earth? I mean, this is part of why you're here, right? And so I get it.
Yeah. I mean, and also I think I finally got to the place where I was good with it because I wanted people to understand Roy and his impact. And I thought that with your film, you did a masterful job of telling that story, the Roy story. And, his legend lives on with that film. And also I think, as hunters, I think people will go back and watch that film when they're trying to explain something to somebody, or they're trying to here's what I was talking about. Like, this is what hunting means. And like, that is a frame of reference now. You know what I mean? Without that, if it never saw the light of day, maybe hunting couldn't move forward. If it does, maybe maybe hunting would have lost something along the way because, I don't know, I want to say selfishly, but because of whatever was going on in my own brain, I didn't want to release it. And maybe it could have helped a handful of people put words into why they do what they do,
right,
or what the mountains mean to them, or what their friend who they've lost meant to them, or something. And so it's like, it's bigger than a hunting film. And so I thought we owed it to, not to the craft, not to the adventure, just owed it to why we're here, to share a big part of my life, of your life as a creator, of Kip's life as wanting to be a badass killer mountain man. I felt like I was handcuffing that.
Let's look at Kip for a second. Okay. Kip is, ridiculously successful, right? I mean, he co-funded Under Armour. Okay. I mean, that's about as, not a whole lot more you can really do, right? Or most people think. And here he says, and he'll tell you this, today, I just want to be a badass mountain guy, right? Mm-hmm. That stuff where I'm wearing the suit, that isn't me, right? I got caught up in this stuff.
Corporate ding dong is
corporate ding dong is what he said. Yeah, that's not who he wanted to be, right? He has this, and everybody, on Instagram and all, like the money side and all that, that's success, right? Oh wow, he's in a company that got put on the stock exchange. That's a successful life, right? But Kip wasn't fulfilled by that. I think that haven't talked about that yet, but that. That's a really interesting thing. Like, to me, in my mind, I'm like, what? Like, really? Mm-hmm. Did you really think that, Kip? Or are you just doing that because it's a perception thing? But no, I mean, I've been to Kip's, place where he lives and stuff. It's nothing fancy. He's not living some crazy corporate life on a yacht and then pretending to, be in Alaska and post Instagram pictures. Like, he wants to be a mountain man like Roy. Mm-hmm. And you look at Roy, right? Comes from, financially anyway, like modest setup. But he, that story you told about him where he said he was with the pilot and he's like, I want to take me out hunting. And the pilot said, I can only get you 30 miles away or whatever. And Roy said, great, drop me off there. Mm-hmm. there's almost like a freedom in that or something. There's like you just, I don't know. It's, and I don't have the answer to this, but it's an interesting thing from a creative side, from a story side, to look at a guy like Kip and a guy like Roy and say, why does Kip, what does he see in Roy? Like what's the essence? Like what's Roy tapped into that Kip hasn't?
Yeah. It's, the money it's a measure that a lot of people use for success. The money, the cars, the vacations, the women, that's like an easy one. That's a low hanging fruit. It's like you're successful, you have this stuff. To Roy, and why he impacted people is because he would just go further and do more and get it done, and it was just tougher. And so for a man, what is there better than being tough?
Yeah.
I mean, society will tell you don't need to be tough. You need to accept your feminine side or whatever bullshit they're trying to say. But for a man, they want respect and they want to be tough. That's what everybody respected Roy. And everybody said he was the toughest guy out there, toughest guy on the mountain. And so, yeah, he is the standard.
Right.
To guys who really get it, who are honest with themselves, not the guys who want the Lamborghini or going to, Milan on vacation.
Yeah, the clubs. Yeah.
It's in the clubs and the drinks, and it's like that shit. What the fuck does that? That doesn't mean anything.
Yeah.
There's millions of people who have that.
Right.
Not millions of people can go and tell a pilot, drop me off as close as you can get me. If that's 30 miles, fuck it. I'll walk.
Yeah, fuck it. And that's freedom. And so, if a guy like Kip, one of the most successful business guys, basically in America, if he looks at Roy and says, that's the type of man that I want to be, imagine how many others are out there. How many other guys are sitting in their offices, looking out the window, saying like, there's gotta be more than this. And I don't even know if I'm fortunate enough. I mean, shoot, I grew up in with my dad, right? So, I mean, I saw, what, quote unquote, like, the traditional view of a man like is, right? But I don't think like that's the exception to the norm, right? I think mostly, I'm not sure if they know.
Yeah.
They got athletes and things like that, but I think they look out the window and they're like, oh shit, there's gotta be something else, but they don't understand what the solution is. Like, what are they even missing? They don't, and hopefully, and again, I hope this impacts people. I hope films like this or other films that look at this, look at like a brotherhood going out or friends going out and doing hard, dangerous, adventurous things like that. We'll start to kind of if the pendulum swung this way, we'll start to swing a little bit back, and maybe we'll go too far eventually. I don't know, but I don't know. I just think there's something missing for a lot of guys out there. Yeah.
And that's why I think that the film does resonate with a lot of people.
Yeah, I hope so. Yeah.
I mean, and it's, I've talked about this, but writing a story about, or a book about Roy stories, because he's got, the 30 miles, that's one, but he's got so many. And he would send me all his photos, and, I would write articles because he wouldn't write an article. He wouldn't talk about himself.
Can I ask you a question? So did Roy, I'm just thinking about this as you're saying, did Roy ever say, hey, like, I want to be like that guy? Because when I see videos of Roy, I see him saying things like, this is what we do. This is who we are. Was he confident in that, or was he?
When we were young, we had people we looked up to for sure. Wayne and I talked about this on my podcast with him. There was a Jim Hodson. He was a dentist here in Oregon, and he came and did a slideshow at the Bow Rack, 100 years ago, 30 years ago. And we were watching his slides from Kodiak Island, and he took great photos, and he had this big album, and I still remember it as like a big photo album, and had all his kills and all his memorable photos, 8x10 glossy in this photo album. And so he'd bring these photo albums, and we'd just be sit there and looking at them. And, we were very young at this time, but it had a big impact on us. So Jim Hodson, of course we'd watch Elk Fever with Larry Jones and Dwight Schrute. So when we were young, there was guys, Chuck Adams was killing so much, and
sure.
He would kill. I remember one year he killed I think it was 10 Pope and Young animals. And I'm like, you know, a Pope and Young animal, it's hard to get one. I think I'd got like maybe a couple at that time. And then I'm like, this guy can kill 10 in a season. And now he's killed 5 or 6 world records. And so they were always the guys who, yeah, we looked up to. But then, and I'm not saying that's changed, because I still have people that I revere, and for their hunting ability and just for their ability to write, convey through words the adventure and how they felt during that hunt. That writing is always powerful. And then your filmmaking, you know, there's always people like that who tell a story in a way, because hunting is stories. That's what it is. It's like, yeah, you're the only one living it, but how it lives on is through your story, whether that's the written word or film.
Right.
So all we're doing is like, and I've said that a lot, it's like, do you have a story to tell? I'll meet somebody and I'll say, tell me a story. That's all it is. So there's still people who we'd always like, man, this guy's got some stories.
Yeah.
You know, and that's what you always say. You always look at somebody and you go, well, I bet he's got some stories to tell, whether it's guys who served in the military, guys who have hunted, guys who've done these. What we're doing in life is making a story, right?
Sure. Yeah.
And so the more you have, to me, that's the more success you have. And the stories that mean the most are the ones where there's the most peril involved or the most unknowns involved. And that's not in the city at the clubs. That's in the mountains.
Yeah.
And so we always had, Roy would just be like, he's the guy who people would say, did you hear about Roy? Here's what he did.
Wow. Yeah.
He was the guy who had the stories,
Yeah.
who was living the stories that people would talk about. So if people aren't talking about you, we were like, you know, if we were doing it right how we wanted, everybody had a story. So we would just be like, yeah, we're out here and we want, you know, Cam and Roy stories. What these guys do. And so that's what we always wanted to go and you know, the crazier it got, the bigger smile we'd have. And, you know, when I killed that Dall sheep with Roy on Pioneer Peak, that was a story. That was the hunts that we loved. It was rugged, it was dangerous, it was hard, and that was it.
That's really profound, actually. I've never thought about it like that. So you're almost saying like your metric for like how much, you know, quote unquote success you've had is the quality and the number of stories that you have, and probably in those days, you know, around the campfire. Right?
Yeah.
Yeah. And that goes back, you know, however many thousands and thousands of years. I mean, that's incredible. That's it. Yeah.
Telling stories. I mean, you know how it is when you meet somebody and they just tell a great story, and everybody's listening. Mm-hmm. The problem is, the worst part of that is people who think they have good stories and their stories suck, and they just won't shut the fuck up. But Roy always had the best stories, and then he always had a joke, and he was like, I don't even know what, he was one of a kind. And I've said that before, but he was truly one of a kind. And there was a certain thing about him when I was with him and we were hunting, I felt invincible because of how he carried himself and just how we spoke to each other. And like there was a time where I killed a grizzly and I didn't have it on the film, but this a sow, I killed this boar. The sow heard, you know, wasn't very far away, but the arrow hit the boar. The boar took off. Obviously, it was making noise when it took off. I think they can hear so much better. I didn't hear anything, but the bear knew something happened. And then we were on the tidal flats and tall grass, and she stands up and she's looking around and sees my bear is out there about 130 yards and piled up. And so she ran. It's like goes over to the blood trailed him out to where he died, and then she just starts tearing him up, like hide going, biting him, attacking him. Wow. And Roy had a gun. I was bow hunting, and I said, you know, I didn't want him to shoot the bear, but I said that she's tearing up my bear, and I said, shoot out there. And so he, you know, scare her off, so he shoots, and she didn't do anything. And I'm like, God, shoot again. I said, "Hey, bear, get out of there." And I said, "Get off my bear," I was yelling. He shoots, and then she kind of snaps out of it and heard me yelling, and the gunfire. She looks, and it's just, again, this is like thigh-high grass. So she looks and just sees us and just beeline and just sprinting. Wow. You know, and grizzlies can run, or this is a brown bear because it's all right off the ocean. But running fast, and, you know, Roy's getting ready. He had already shot a couple times, and so he's down to like one shell in his gun. And Johnny Rivet was filming at this time, and we knew we were down to one shell. And Roy said, if she crosses the creek, and we were right on the bank of the creek, he goes, I'm gonna have to shoot her. And, you know, I knew he was down to one, so I told John, I said, hey, where's that extra ammo, you know? And so the bear comes over and stands up 20 yards away, and I have my bow there. It's all I had. Roy had the gun, and we're yelling at the bear. And even during this whole time, I never once felt anything like fear. I was never worried. I think probably because Roy was there, and I'm just like, what? I mean,
yeah.
It was another part of the adventure. It was just like, yeah, we're gonna, you know, we'll see what happens. This bear comes over here. So the bear drops down and just starts charging right at us from 20 yards, and Roy shoots and hits it like right. I don't know where he was aiming, but it, you know, it happened fast. But he hit off her head and hit right in between the shoulder and the neck, and just dropped the bear. So at 375 Magnum, and dropped the bear and folded it up. And all we could say, you know, I just started cussing, and this is on the film. Like I said, I didn't put it out, but we have it. You know, it was a defense of life and property kill, so we, you know, it was legal and everything else. Yeah. But all I remember saying on the film was, I was like, fuck. And I'm just like, God damn it. And he goes, dude, I had to. And I said, I know, I just didn't want to have to kill another bear. Mm-hmm. I said, I don't want to kill this bear. Yeah. And so we were never like concerned about anything. We were just upset we had to, you know, he killed this charging bear. But the point is like, those type of things happened a lot, it felt like. Right. Because when you're in Alaska and you're, you know, you go in the wild, there's no rules. It's like
it's like a different planet almost. It's a different world. Yeah, you don't worry about shit like, you know, I don't know, you know, there's no, you know, you're gonna get a speeding ticket. No. You know, or the lineup at Starbucks. Like the things you worry about are like totally different than what you would normally even consider. Right. That's I don't have, you know, and that's interesting you said that, feeling invincible with Roy, because, you know, that's almost, you know, with my dad growing up, I didn't even think about it. You know, he wasn't going out of his way to bring me into dangerous situations, but, you know, we did some crazy stuff. We were in Africa for, you know, a month, sleeping on the ground, and there'd be lions and stuff around. And I remember,
you're never concerned.
Well, I wasn't, because I honestly didn't know any different. Dad's like, you're, you know, coming with me on this big giant, you know, worldwide trip, and I'm hunting just like normal, and that's it. So, okay, this is where you sleep tonight. Okay, no problem. But I remember we were hunting, what was it? I think he was leopard hunting. And I mean, that's a pretty grueling thing. You know, you're in the back of a truck for like 18 days, you're driving around, but, you know, oftentimes you're sitting in a blind in the morning, and it's pitch dark. So, you know, whatever, 4 a.m., like proper dark. And Dad was a muzzleloader hunter. And so we're sitting in this little tiny blind. And what I'm about to tell you is pretty common, I think, but I didn't realize this, you know, in Africa. It was super dry. I was like a high school kid, and I was having really bad nosebleed. So I was, you know, I had like a big wad of tissues, and I'm trying to stop my nose from bleeding, and it's, you know, kind of dripping on my hands and stuff. I can feel in the dark, but you can't see anything. So my nose is bleeding, and there's no leopard, but we hear lions calling in the distance, right? And you know, that I can't do it, but that real deep guttural, right? Like, I mean, literally the sound, kind
of like that, yeah.
Right. Well, a little bit more like deeper than that. Yeah. But you know, the literal,
there's no mistaking what it is.
Yeah.
You're like, whatever the fuck that is, it sounds big and
right.
Yeah.
I mean, we are hardwired to, like, you know, fear that basically. Yeah. You know, and over there, at least where we were, lions at night do not fear humans. I mean, like, not at all. I mean, you're just another, you know, you're a prey animal at that point. And so we were sitting there, and the roaring came closer and closer and closer. And I was thinking, okay, this is, you know, seems a little weird. Can't see anything. And then they get close enough where the roaring stops, and we just start hearing, you know, padded footsteps, right? And then And this is when I start thinking about my nosebleed, and I'm like, oh, this probably isn't great. You know, it's a bunch of
blood.
Yeah, blood. Yeah.
Yeah.
And so the lions start padding right around the tent, and then they start huffing. So they make this like huffing and blowing under the tent, you know, because I think, you know, they see this, it's not a big tent, right? It's a tiny little, you can barely fit in it. Yeah, blind. And the only thing separating, you know, me and my bloody nose from, you know, a pack of lions is the film in the tent, right? It's a nothing.
Yeah.
The guide said, Mike Fell, I think it was, and he said, basically the lions have, you know, 5 zippers on each hand, you know, if they want to use them, right?
Right.
And later, because again, pitch black, no one can talk, you can't make a sound. Mike told us that, you know, they're trying to get you to run, right? They don't know, they're not sure.
They want a reaction.
They want a reaction, right? If you run out there, you're dead.
Yeah.
And that was the first time when I thought, holy shit, this is, you know, okay, this is a little bit, you know, Dad, I'm maybe not quite as invincible as I thought. Yeah. You know, just because Dad's here doesn't mean shit, really. I mean, in this scenario.
Right.
And so they, you know, they're knocking down branches and they're hitting the tent and stuff. And I remember my heart rate going up.
Yeah.
And I was like, okay, I'm actually, you know, this is not a good feeling. But anyway, so not as amazing as your story, but like you said, if you're measuring the success of your life by the quality and quantity of stories, then you have to go and do things outside the norm. You're not going to do that going out to the clubs, right? Not the type of stories you want to, you know, spread.
Yeah. It's, but what a great story you have. You know, I mean, that is a great story because a lion, people can visualize that. Most people are never going to be in that situation, but your story puts them there. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And it's like, I just think it's so powerful. So to me, the second most important thing besides having a good story is being around outliers and spending time with people who like have achieved greatness in whatever field they are or they're in. And so that's where like even this series, this Lift, Run, Shoot series, is selfishly, it's me being able to like, oh, I got this excuse. We're going to film this. I'm going to give you a bow. Mostly I'm just like buying their time. I just want to spend time with these people, you know? And so if it's not for adventures like with people like Roy or out there just in the wild of the most wild country, then it's like, at least I could, in between those type of adventures, I'll spend time with badasses. And so that's where, you know, you've been so instrumental in the Lift, Run, Shoot series, the podcast where we talk to outliers. And it's like, to me, it feels like meaningful and a meaningful existence, you know, and that's what we want, right? We want to, you know, you want to look around and be like, what is the fucking point to all this?
Right.
And going to a regular job and doing that, yes, we have to do that because we have to support our family. But sometimes you might look in the mirror and you'll wonder, what, is this it?
Right.
And that's where those experiences, and if you can't do them, maybe the best we can do is share them. Of course. And share that story. And so that's what, to me, that's the best part of, the second best part of what we do is being able to share that story. And like having you captured on film, because I trust so much, like I trusted Roy, that we were always going to get out of every situation. I trust you with the camera to be like, well, whatever the fuck happens, it's going to be cool on film. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And so I have that same amount of trust for you in your profession is how I see it. And that's why the film, it took a while, but man, it feels good for you to have the impact, I think, or the platform. I'm not saying you never had a platform, but man, this is, you know, it's reached a new audience, and that is so exciting for me to our people who wouldn't know the Shockeys, wouldn't know Branlin or Brandon Shockey, wouldn't know Branlin Shockey, and now they do. And God, I just love it.
Oh, thanks, Cam. Well, we gotta talk about what's next.
What is next?
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know.
How do we top that?
Well, we could do nothing, you know, and then sort of just live in the past.
Yeah, just rest on our laurels.
Yeah.
Do you know what laurels means?
I have an idea.
People don't.
Yeah. Explain it to me.
No. Yeah. We we hunted elk in Utah.
Yeah.
And so how'd that go? You screwed that up.
Well, I could release the footage if you'll let me this time. And I think
is it
I think it's
powerful?
pretty clear that the camera guy there's nothing I could have done to have shown that elk. I couldn't even shown an ear of that elk or a hoof or anything of it other than just you shooting the bow and then looking back and say, did you get it? And
what was the answer?
Well, give some context to the answer. Oh. You shot the elk and I don't even know what you're looking at. I could never see it. But where I would, because as a camera person, is when you're trying to get the perfect shot, right? You got to stand a little bit further back. I can't be right over your shoulder.
But you should have been up high enough. I mean, you're twice the height of me.
I think you found some little sort of hole through the bushes or something, some kind of little rabbit trail or something you shot through, because I couldn't see the elk at all. So I don't think we're going to release that film because I'm just like you. I'm not perfect,
Yeah.
So yeah, I don't think that'll be Once for Wolves 2.
Yeah. Well, so what's your goal? I mean, what do you? Here we are. We work together on these projects. The lift, run, shoot, and the podcast. And also you're doing American Made for the Outdoor Channel.
For the Outdoor Channel. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Going around to American-owned companies.
Yeah.
And highlighting their stories.
Yeah.
Right. So what's on the future for you?
Well, I just want to say, it's an honor to be in this position, right? Because I grew up, I was lucky enough. I had a step up in the beginning, obviously with who my dad was, and so I was able to, make a bit of a mark early on, but what you mentioned earlier about the comments about people's feedback, and they say, hey, like, I watched work that you did, or I saw something you did, or I read about it, or whatever it is. I heard a story you told, and that affected me. Right. I'm just, all I do is I just, put stories in whatever medium I'm working in. Right. I try and be as creative as possible. But I truly believe that we tell ourselves stories in order to live. Kind of like what you mentioned. I think Joan Didion said that, but that's it. I want to tell great stories, and I want to impact other people's lives. Obviously, my family and my kids aside, that's all I want to do. I want people to look at something I've done and be like, holy shit, I understand there's something there that he gets and that I get, and I have that same feeling. And I want to positively impact as many people as possible. That's it. Through whatever creative medium.
What's your favorite, or how do you think that's most easily done? Is it through adventures in the wild, or do you just want to make films wherever?
The only way I know how to do that currently is through adventures. And I think that's because, again, that's the lot in life I've had. That's the advantage I've had. That's my experience. That's what I know how to do. I couldn't, if I walked onto a film set tomorrow, I wouldn't know, I couldn't even tell you what type of lights they're using or what my role is supposed to be. All I know is that if we have a group of men or women going into the wilderness, going on an adventure, I believe currently I know how to tell that story. Now, I hope someone next week is going to come out with something, and I'm going to watch what they put together, creative mind, and I'm going to go, oh, wow, okay, that's it, right? Like you told that better than I ever could, and I'm going to learn from that, kind of like you do with the Outliers, right? So no, I think you can tell stories in any type of medium you want. You can tell stories on Instagram. You can tell stories around the campfire. You can tell big giant stories in movie theaters. You can tell it over the phone. I don't know. There's all kinds of different mediums, and the only one I know is the outdoors. Yeah,
and do you think that? Well, you know it so well, but do you think that it's the dichotomy between life there and life here is such a juxtaposed that story is more intriguing to you?
Yeah.
Is like the connection between the wild and civilized world. And so that's how you like those type of stories?
Yeah. Well, I mean, I believe that. I truly believe that there's a disconnection that we are not even close to addressing or figuring out. I think I think that there are millions of people that are not living their best life because they don't understand what that really means. They understand what they, they understand necessities. Like we said, I get that.
Mm-hmm.
You gotta provide for your family however you can. But I'm talking about, what you do on the weekends. I'm talking about, why you haven't called your buddy up from high school and done anything cool like you used to in the old days. Remember when you used to build forts and you used to go adventure in the forest and that was all fun? What happened to that?
Yeah.
Or like, why are we sitting, I don't know, eating popcorn, watching, I don't want to say what people, why we're doing, but I just think there's more out there for everybody, from the most successful people on the planet to just the average, everyday men and women, living their lives, blue collar stuff. Like, we can all live better lives, myself included. And I just, I don't know. I just want to be part of that.
Who's impacted you as a filmmaker?
Yeah, great question. So when I started off, and this is, I was totally naive, right? So Dad said, hey, I was going to university as a business major. And he said, hey, if you don't want to go into business, why don't you come, film and try and make a series, right? Because I've had successful hunting adventures. Want to make one called Professionals, right? And I said, Dad, I went to school for 4 years for business. I don't know anything about making a series. And but I eventually said yes, and I sat there on YouTube for like 6 months, learned how to edit, and I lied. The Outdoor Channel said, hey, where's the series? You've got it all like in the proper formats, what you're doing. You've got the sound design, all that stuff, big studios. And I said, yeah, sure. And I sent, I was literally in my underwear in my bedroom on a box made out of cardboard because I couldn't afford a desk, my laptop, and I sent them, the series, the episodes I was making. So I kind of faked it. But I was not a hunter, right? I was never, or at least if I did some hunting, I wasn't hunting first. And I still don't. I don't look at hunting movies or films. And if I do, I don't look at them in terms of like, oh, I wonder how big that elk was. Or all I look at is like, hey, did I like that? Did I connect with that?
Right.
So in my early days, I literally like Guy Ritchie, like the Lock, Stock, Two Smoking Barrels.
Right.
That guy knows how to tell a story. And that's what I was watching at the time when I was making The Professional. So I did a bunch of, like he does those super fast cuts and moves around. So I would try and do stuff like that.
Okay.
Now they're a horrible version. I would nobody looked that up because it's not even close to what he was doing. But that's what inspired me at the time. So,
Hollywood, basically certain producers in Hollywood, and you tried to bring that type of creativity into the mountains then?
Right. And then that evolved over, so even Once We're Wolves, there's a shot there where, because I don't want to take all the credit for, I'm not like some creative genius, like the shot where Kip's walking towards the plane, when it kind of rotates around him, right? Okay, there's a snowboarding video called...
where it goes like this, flips like this?
Yes, okay, that stuff too, right? Okay. Yeah, so that even the flippy stuff, that can't give credit because I don't know the people that came up with that, but it wasn't me.
Okay.
Right.
So you've emulated things that you've liked and into the work you're doing.
Right. And brought into hunting. Yeah.
I think, Tanner wears a t-shirt that says, what does that say?
Great artist steal.
Great artist steal.
Okay. Sure. Yeah.
So so you steal these ideas, put them in your medium. And then, that's just kind of how it works. It's like, is there really any original ideas, or are there versions of, and then of course the hunt is original, but maybe this editing style is influenced by.
It would be cool if anything we did in lives, including what you and Roy did, right? Like, as great as Roy was and guys like my dad and you are, we're all standing on the shoulders of others, right? And that goes back into our, generation, all the way back. Same with any kind of story we're telling. That goes all the way back to, the beginning of time. Like that's from the campfires to now. There's just, different iterations. And there's going to be, like I said, someone next week will come up with a way better way to tell stories than I ever could have even dreamed. And I think that's great. It's just part of being part of something like a bigger process than ourselves, like our individual selves.
Have you seen a hunting film that you didn't do that you appreciated? Maybe you haven't even watched any.
I don't. Yeah. It's funny. I don't really watch hunting films. I will say the work that, and I don't want to leave anybody out here, but have you heard of Rock House Motion?
Yeah.
Okay. So
yeah, they do good work.
They do great work.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I remember seeing their stuff and being like, oh, okay, wow. Yeah. And I've since become friends with Matt White, but like those guys, I'm like, okay, like respect.
Donnie Vincent gets a lot of credit for his filmmaking. And I'll admit I haven't watched much of it, but I know he does stand out in that realm for the work that he's putting into the filmmaking part.
Totally. Yeah. And I've heard that consistently. I've not seen some of his stuff. I've seen, I can just kind of tell, you know, the just from watching, you know, a few seconds or even the photos and everything, like I'm sure his work is excellent.
Very insightful.
Yeah.
He seems like an insightful person.
I think, you know, I live in Kansas City right now, and the Heartland Bowhunter guys are around there. Are you familiar with those guys?
Yeah.
I think there's a perception that, and I hope there isn't, but you know, I had this perception in the beginning that, oh, like, you know, to tell great stories, you have to go on some ridiculous, you need to go to Alaska, you know, have some crazy adventures, and you got to have like, you know, all kinds of time and money to spend on, you know, whatever camera gear, and you got to, you know, edit and all that. If you look at what those guys are doing, they're out there with very basic DSLRs that, you know, most people have, and I think they do great work. So I think that's cool.
Yeah, no, that is good. I think great work in an incredible setting makes it better.
Makes it better. Yeah. Well, of course. Yeah. And there's a reason why, you know, obviously I'd prefer to go to Alaska than to try and film something in my backyard in suburbia Kansas City, you know? So, but the point is that it's the most important thing is story. And I don't think that, going back to some of your other questions, I don't think that a film like this would be nearly as powerful without the backstory of you and Roy, of you and Kip, right? Because Kip and you are kind of, you know, friends now, and it used to be you and Roy. Now it's you and Kip, and Kip sees in you what you, I think, originally saw in Roy, right? That was all themes in the movie. You take that away, and it's just a hunt film.
Yeah, you want to know. You want to know what's missing from that movie?
What?
Do you think anything's missing?
Yeah, I didn't show Kip's brother Kobe as much as I should have.
No, but that's fine. I mean, Kobe's kind of like he's not like jumping in front of the camera all the time.
Well, actually, you know what? Very quick, you know what happened with that? Because I talked to Kip, and so the truth is Kobe was with us in that, but I don't show much in the movie. He actually, the three of us were sharing a tent together, right?
Yeah.
And Kobe, during the blizzard, he was in a tent by himself.
Yeah.
And so I didn't really have much footage of him at all, and so I didn't. Anyway, go ahead. What's missing?
Well, I mean, yeah, props to Kobe. He's great guy, tough guy you want in the clutch for sure. What's missing is I can't watch it with Roy.
Yeah.
So any hunting story or memory is just not the same, because if he could watch that film and we could talk about it, that's perfect. But, you know, it's a great film and it's awesome. But his room, Roy's room at his house, he's not in it. All those things are there. We have all his memories. We have the big snow machine picture from brown bear hunting. We have everything you could look around and have an incredible story on it, and Roy's not telling it. And so this movie, without Roy, it can't be the best ever, because I can't share it with. That's what we did. We loved getting on the phone, talking about. I mean, when he killed that biggest brown bear on Kodiak that won the Fred Bear Award, he called me on the sat phone to tell me. When he dug into the den and that bear came piling out, when Roy locked eyes with it, when the bear was in the den and Roy was crawling in there, he called me from the mountain. So it's like, we would do these things. And if we weren't together, we were always the call, like, dude, you won't believe this. So this movie without being able to share it with him, it's like, yeah. I mean, to me, that's what's missing. But
well, yeah, I didn't think about that, but I will say, you told me this one time. You said that life sucks sometimes. Mm-hmm. Mother Nature, life doesn't owe anybody to be fair. There's no. I mean, that's something that we humans have come up with that doesn't exist. I will say that I think that you would have made Roy proud. I think, the way that you went up there and did what you had to do, the way that you had an adventure and you brought others on an adventure like he brought you in the early days, certainly something that I will never forget. I'll always be grateful for that. And I just don't, sometimes I think we don't have the answers. And I think it made, I hope anyway that, the film we made did justice to Roy's legacy. I know we can never match that. We can never get up there, but, we can only do the best we can do.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, when you saying that, the only reservation I have, if we're going to be honest, is you had a clip in there, and I'm not sure if I think this is how you felt, but you had the camera turned around on you and you were shaking your head. And it made me feel bad that I was dragging people into that shit.
I'm gonna be honest with you. I was pissed. Not pissed at you. I was just pissed at the situation. I thought, because I don't want to. I'm not a fucking tough guy, right? I don't look in the mirror and say, "Oh, there's a tough guy looking back at me." I don't. I've done some dangerous stuff, but that's mostly because that's just kind of what I know. I don't know how to make a living doing other things. So I wasn't excited to be in that scenario. But again, I remember one time we were in. So this is a crazy adventure with Dad, and we were up way north, and we were polar bear hunting. So we were on the back of, dog sleds, basically getting bounced around the ice all day. And something happened, and the people that live up there, right? They're tougher. They've got more toughness in a fingernail than I will ever have in my. I mean, yeah. I'm sitting there in my whole outfit looking like a dummy with a giant like motorcycle helmet on because of my head's freezing, and I can't feel my hands, and I've got my fancy clothing, and they're wearing I'm wearing like the minus 100-degree rated gloves, and they're out there working on like metal parts with their bare hands, and their faces are all. One of the guys was all scarred up from a polar bear attack, and everybody else, all their skin's all falling off in their face and stuff because they're just so tough. It's like minus 70 out or some crazy thing. Yeah. And something, I can't remember what it was, but there was a polar bear around, and I felt like the guide that we had was making like really bad, like dangerous decisions, like going very fast around. The polar bears, like they're kind of like the lions are, like they're not used to seeing humans. I mean, they'll kill you, no joke. And something happened. I was mad. And I told Dad that I was mad because this is a situation that I shouldn't be in. This is too dangerous, right? And he basically, like, at first he was kind of like, okay, and then he thought about it. And he's like, listen, this is the way things are. There's nothing to do with you. This is not in your control. And that's part of it. You need to be, this is it. Life, again, Mother Nature doesn't need to be fair to you. Fairness is not, I think this is the way these people live. We are in their world. They're not in ours. We didn't invite them to come down to, have coffee at Starbucks down here. We're in their environment. And so you accept it. So, even though in that situation, I was not super thrilled to be going into the trees. You'll notice that I did my very best to keep as many people between me and where I thought the bear was going to go as possible. Yeah.
So I just, and Kip also had a similar reaction. He wasn't that excited, and I was, Johnny's put in a bad situation because I'm telling, I don't want guns. I don't want anybody shooting. Basically, I don't want anybody there, but he has to be there because that's his job. You guys didn't want to be there, but we were together, we're a team. So I just felt, it's one thing to fuck up on your own and you have to go clean up the mess. I mean, I had to do it in San Carlos on this big tight bull right here. And it was just me who got in there, and I could fix it. I fucked it up. I made a bad shot, but I can fix this. And all I wanted to do was fix that. I wanted to get the grizzly killed. I didn't want to have anybody else there. I didn't want to make it, and so that's like, when I watched the film, I'm like, it just kind of, it puts me back there again, where I'm almost like, God, I'm dragging these fuckers into my mess, and I didn't want to.
Right, but that's the thing, right? And you heard Kip afterwards. He said, what did he say? So there's no one I'd rather spend time in the woods with, right? That's after this all went down. I don't think it's about, and life isn't about making the best decision. Or maybe we could have waited longer. Maybe, I don't know, you could have made a better shot. I'm sure there's decisions that, you would want back. But that's not what adventure is about. We're not expecting you to be perfect, but we're there for you anyway. And that's always something, like I look at, the war stuff and the stories my grandpa would tell me, and he'd basically say, it's not about the war. You don't give a shit about what the global policies are. You care about the person next to you, right? And I think that is, as unfortunate as it is, that it has to be, I think kind of in a generally in dangerous situations where this comes through. But like Johnny said afterwards, it felt like we almost went through a little bit of a war together, and we had a bond that I don't think you can just get by going to the bar with your buddies and doing what we would normally do in everyday life. It just doesn't, it's not the same.
No, I get that too. And afterwards I said that, and I was trying to think that, that was a big deal, that bond that we had, in the moment. And, people can, whatever, say it's an act. it doesn't really matter, but I would have rather went down there, and if I could have went, got an arrow in that bear, killed it or whatever, and not had you guys even been subjected to all that. And yeah, I mean, it was just like, I obsessed too much, probably. I know hunting means different things to different people. It's the only thing that's ever made me stand out. So it means it's everything. And it's just like, I guess I'm thankful. I'm sorry that I had to bring everybody into that fucking disaster zone and the alders there. But I'm also very grateful for the bond that we have afterwards. And if the film can show that, hunting, it's real, you can't be perfect, and even the guy who does this every day can fail, and if that feels more authentic and can impact people, then I guess that's a win. But to me personally, I still doesn't feel like a win.
I just, and I understand that. I just, again, from a selfish storytelling standpoint, I think that's kind of the point, right? How many people, part of what I feel like we're missing in our lives is the ability to look over your shoulder and see your buddy next to you and have 100% confidence that when that, whatever, rhino charges, grizzly charges, whatever it is, the Germans are charging, doesn't matter. When shit goes down, that guy's going nowhere. Mm-hmm. That's an uncommon thing. I mean, you see it, you see it sometimes with brothers and people like that, but I think it's far less common than it used to be, where like a group of people can have a bond like that. Although I don't know if I'd include myself in that situation, because that grizzly is coming. I don't know that I'd be stepping in front of it for you, but you know what I mean? Yeah,
I do. Well, I mean, I'm thankful you were there. I'm thankful that the film has had the impact, and mostly I'm thankful because the impact, whatever, it's just like, it's, my story is, I can tell a story and it's fine, and it happened how it happened. But if if there's any positive out of it, if people are aware of your talents because of it, I'm like super grateful for that. And I just, I want to commend you for your ability to capture things with a camera that other people wouldn't see or think to capture, and then to turn it into a story. It's so unique. It's like, I don't want it to be a cliche that this is, we talked to outliers, but you are the one in hunting who has taken what we do to another level. And it's maybe you've been influenced by others, but for what you've done in this industry, it's you're one of one. And I'm very grateful, despite however it went, that we were there and we were able to make a film out of it that can have an impact on people. And I think about everything that you went through growing up, being the son of Jim Shockey, not having that burning desire to be a hunter, your whole family dynamic with your sister, she's ultra talented, just amazing in her own way. And then your mom, that like the glue to the family. Yeah. And I think about all your journey to get you to right here. And I know there's been ups and downs. I know everybody sees this great, I remember the pictures from the Outdoor Channel Golden Moose Awards, and you look like the most perfect family ever invented. Yeah. And it's like, I know it's not always like that, but for whatever has happened on this journey to put you here and to put us in position to release that film, I'm very grateful for. And I'm humbled. I'm humbled that we're working together and that we can somehow maybe shine a different light on hunting, because it's what I love, and telling stories is what you love. And for whatever reason, we've come together and have done something special, and I'm very grateful for you.
I don't know what to say to that other than I think I'm the one that's humbled, Cam, and it was an honor to share the mountain with you, and I hope we continue to do so.
We will, and thank you for telling the story of Roy Roth. Yeah, you did a great job. I appreciate you, Branlin. Thank you.
Appreciate you, Cam. Thank you.
All right, let's wrap this up. Keep hammering.
Every step I take, I move my truth. Every time they tell me stop, I use every comment, hate that makes my fuel. Gather up my energy and boom, I hear them talking, saying the way that I move is so reckless. That is a part of my mind I've been blessed with, giving my blood, so I am relentless. My fault, they want someone to blame. They sent their hate, it fuels my pace. I am Roy Tough, I am the change, the few endure, feeling like Cam Hanks. Oh, give me the